The Tarkov market is absolutely broken right now, and it's definitely affecting how enjoyable the game is for a mass amount of players. And even if you don't think it's affecting you, it probably still is. And so let's jump into this topic. First up, let's talk about what the market state is right now within the game. So regardless of if you play PvE or PvP, the matters are basically the same, except accentuated on PvE. It's much worse because there are just a lot less risk factors. There's a lot more gear being taken out of raids and consumables and stuff like that, that the supply is just way higher. So what happened with the most recent wipe, at least from the PvP side, is that we're seeing an influx of, the common items that you would normally require for upgrading your hideout, for generally doing reusable barter trades, and for basically doing anything within your hideout that does require reusable items, things like the moonshine production and anything in that regard, that these are going way higher than they've ever really been, because of the fact that the money is just infinitely printing out of the game, because there is no longer a found in raid system to be able to list things on the flee. And this is probably a somewhat good thing for a lot of players, being able to at least extract with a certain amount of money in the raid to cover the cost of their gear, so it doesn't feel like you're constantly losing money if maybe you're newer to Tarkov. But the problem is this also subsequently means that the risk reward factor of a extraction shooter, where there is that risk and the enjoyment of being able to extract, is all down to the fact that you are risking something. And with these changes and the ability to store stuff in your backside that is basically going to cover the entire cost of your raid should you be taken out within the game, basically means the only risk is the time that you've spent in the raid and any tasks you may be completing. There is no financial risk when you go into a raid now, or at least the financial risk is severely depleted from where it has been previously in a lot of the other wipes. And that going forward with such long wipe cycles that we've been seeing recently is only getting worse and worse, as the prices of various different hideout items like the Bitcoin farm and all of these different things add into this, where Bitcoin being linked to the actual markets and seeing Bitcoin at 1.4 million rubles right now as of the recording of this video means that people are making way too much money in the game, and with that entails the fact that no longer is there any risk of losing gear, or at least you don't feel negatively impacted by losing gear within raids, and therefore taking away the whole point of the game. It's supposed to be fun to run in and, oh no, you've been taken out, and although it might be annoying at that point, the problem is that that provides the value. When you take someone else out, you're taking the gear. It feels rewarding. And now with the fact that you can buy gear for relatively cheap, with the fact that you can buy everything off of the flea pretty much, because everyone can list up everything, the supply is way higher, therefore the prices on the flea are coming down in price for a lot of the armor components, and a lot of the stuff that you can buy from traders can instantly be sold back to the flea in bigger quantities than you would ever be taken out within the game. Means that you end up in this situation where gear is like the minimum cost that it could possibly be, and the amount of money you can make in the raid is going up and up because of some of the high value items like sugar and stuff for these reusable barter trades, the Bitcoin prices, and everything in between that comes into that sphere, like the reusable crafts and everything, is way above the cost of, even if you went into raids and were taken out most of the time, that you still are going to be making money on the game, which should probably not be the case in terms of, economy wise, because that leads to this inflationary thing where supply of most items is like ludicrous, and really the only valuable stuff that you can take out of the raid are the things that people use for reusable crafts. and those go skyrocketing high, and most people know where those spawns are. The loot runs and everything that everyone's doing within the game is already well optimized, so that all of those sorts of items are basically what you're extracting with every single time, and everyone doesn't bother with all of the low quality, non-usable or non-required items that are in the game, and that means that those go through the floor, whereas some things go through the roof. But equally, you know, you're not outspending that money, and people are just accumulating billions, and I mean billions of rubles if you're playing on PvE, and hundreds of millions if you're playing on PvP, which, yeah, I mean, it detracts from the whole point of the game itself, and that is the core reason why the game may or may not for you be feeling a little bit boring. Because there's no risk involved. There has to be a risk to reward when you're playing a game like this. Otherwise, you are essentially playing a hardcore game like Call of Duty, for example, with some minute changes from what you would see with those games, whereby, you know, if you do die, you have to do some extra steps, go and buy some stuff, and go back into the raid, whereas those you just go straight back in. Now, I touched on the topic of people reselling stuff that you can buy from traders straight back onto the flea for profit. And although this is something that previously would make a lot of money when the flea market first came out, with essentially the new non-found in raid items being able to be sold on the flea, now the prices have basically leveled to the point where you can sell it to traders or list it on the flea for a very, very similar price. Bar some of the highest quality, highest requirements to actually unlock certain items on those barters. But those barters, they are basically equaling out, so that, you know, you can go ahead and do the barter yourself, but you're probably not making any money on doing that, and you'd be better off just buying said item from the flea. And this is where there, in my opinion, has to be some form of, no, you can't actually sell items that you bought from traders. You can get taken out in a raid and put it up your backside and still sell those items, but the ability to resell items from the traders, I think, is starting to become an issue that I think is maybe quite under the radar for a lot of people. That, you know, people are making at the beginning of wipes millions and millions of rubles from just reselling items that they're getting from barter trades, and the faster that you do that, the quicker you can get those returns. And essentially what you'll see is that those players can be up to 100 million within a week of the wipe starting, if they can smash out the first, maybe 2 weeks of the wipe starting, maybe not a week. But my point being is that the quicker that you get your traders leveled up, the quicker you can sell items from a barter to the flea market, and that way they're making more money because less people have access to that at the beginning of wipe. But then that subsequently ends up with them getting way too much money, and then them being able to never really have to risk losing money in Tarkov again, which will happen eventually, but the cycle at which that happens is coming lower for the majority of people. So previously, maybe it took 3 months into the wipe for people to kind of get to a stage where they don't really mind losing 1 million rubles when they get taken out of the raid. Now it's come to the point where, you know, that might only be a month into the wipe, and everyone pretty much doesn't really care about actually having money into the game. And I think that that is, once again, one of the big problems. And then what happens is, because we've now extended the wipes even further, because BSG are starting to draw out those wipes longer and longer, is that most people are enjoying that development where they're gaining rubles, they're getting all of this gear, the gear seems valuable, and you've got that risk to reward ratio. But that period of time is now shrunk, and then you've got an additional period of time extra to what we previously had in Tarkov that is then going to just essentially extend that period where you've got everything and you don't need to do anything in order to have the gear, to have the items, to have your hideout leveled up, and that is the period of time that is now added on. And so rather than having a 6-month wipe with 3 months where you're kind of getting traction, you're completing stuff, you're doing everything you need to, and then having 3 months of kind of, you know, we can go into raids, we can lose our money, we can spend it, whatever, we can just have fun on the game. Now we're having 1 month of actually grinding, and then like 8 months of just doing whatever you want to do with no real risk. And that ratio, I think, is the biggest problem with Tarkov's economy right now, is that you're spending most of your time not really having anything to work towards, and even when you do get taken out, you have surplus money to spend on whatever you want. And that kind of defeats the whole extraction shooter aspect of the game. So although Tarkov's market was supposed to be changed in order to make it better for everyone, it probably has actually worked in the opposite way, where it's now working to make the game less fun. So that was the video that I wanted to make today. I thought we'd talk about it, give my opinions on the matter, and of course these are just my opinions. I'm not going to tell you that this is straight facts, everything that I'm saying in this video should be changed or whatever, but I wanted to highlight the issue and get your thoughts on it as well, as the more we speak about it, the more engagement we get with this sort of thing, the more kind of data we have to actually go through and try and figure out what's actually going on with the whole game, and maybe BSG will kind of react to that. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or queries or videos you'd like to see next, make sure to leave them in the comment section. And if you enjoy watching Escape from Tarkov content, or maybe even other extraction shooter content in the future, then be sure to subscribe down below and like the video if you did enjoy it. Check out this video on screen right now if you want a good run through of some PvE labs, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.